What happens in a democracy if your vote doesn't matter? It's not a hypothetical. It's a question citizens in various congressional districts face every election cycle across America. Why? Because powerful efforts are made to decide the outcome before a single ballot is cast, not by the voters, by the people who drew the map. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to a principle the founders considered foundational. In the republic they designed, the people were sovereign. Your vote reflects your will, and your representative actually represents your community, nowhere more so than in the House of Representatives. The House is the chamber the founders designed to be directly answerable to the people through population-based representation. The legitimacy of the whole system is called into question when representatives no longer act for the people they were chosen to serve. Over time, various forces have worked to hollow out the founders' intent. This episode is the story of one of the most effective, and the remedy the founders built in to address it. This is the story of how the map got in the way. Manipulation of electoral boundaries didn't wait for the modern era. It began almost as soon as the Republic did. Viewers of this channel met Elbridge Gerry in our first episode, a founder, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, a man of genuine principle. In 1812, as governor of Massachusetts, he would become associated with something rather less principled. His party, the Democratic Republicans, pushed through a redistricting bill that carved the state's legislative districts into shapes designed to concentrate their opponents' votes and dilute their power. Historical accounts suggest Gerry found the bill highly disagreeable, but he signed it. One of those districts, in Essex County, had a shape that caught the eye of a cartoonist at the Boston Gazette. He added a head, wings, and claws to the district's outline on the map, and it looked like a salamander. Someone combined the governor's name, Gerry, with that word, and the term gerrymander entered the American political vocabulary. The public recognized the tactic for what it was, and Gerry's salamander was not an isolated incident. The practice of drawing boundaries to entrench power rather than represent communities would grow, spread, and become an increasingly permanent feature of American political life, until Congress decided it had seen enough. The founders anticipated that states might misuse their authority over elections, so they built a check directly into the Constitution. Article 1, Section 4 gives states the power to set the times, places, and manner of congressional elections, but it reserves for Congress the explicit authority to override those state rules by law. That override power was not an accident. It was a deliberate safeguard placed there by the same men who understood what happens when those in power are left to write their own rules. For decades, Congress watched the gerrymandering problem grow, and by the 1830s, manipulation had moved beyond district shapes. Some states were running winner, take all slates, electing their entire congressional delegation statewide and effectively locking out any party that didn't hold a majority. It was representation in name only. In 1842, Congress acted. The Apportionment Act directly invoked the Constitution's Article 1 authority. It mandated single-member districts composed of contiguous territory, no more statewide slates, and no more salamanders. Districts had to hold together geographically and represent actual communities. Congress wasn't finished. Equal population requirements were added in 1872. Compactness, the requirement that districts not be drawn into bizarre and tortured shapes, was explicitly required by 1901. For nearly 70 years thereafter, across 6 successive census-based apportionment cycles, Congress renewed and strengthened these protections. The founders' remedy was real. It was used, and for a time it held. Then came 1920. The census that year confirmed something that had been building for decades. America had become, for the first time, a majority urban nation. That shift meant congressional seats would move, from rural states to urban ones, from incumbent power bases to new and growing communities. And Congress refused to act. For the only time in American history, the House simply did not reapportion itself following a census. The constitutional obligation was clear. The will to meet it was not. Rural incumbents, facing the loss of seats and influence, found reasons to delay, then to delay again. An entire decade passed with representation frozen in place, a map drawn for an America that no longer existed. When Congress finally acted in 1929, the goal was simply to get something, anything, passed. The Apportionment Act that emerged fixed the number of House seats at 435. In the exhaustion of finally reaching agreement, Congress failed to renew the compactness and contiguity requirements that had been in existence for nearly 90 years. No debate, no principled stand against them. They simply disappeared. The Supreme Court, then housed within the Capitol building, confirmed in 1932 that the requirements had lapsed. The court did not rule that such protections would be unconstitutional if restored. The court left the door unlocked. Congress has yet to walk back through it. With no federal standards governing district shapes and federal courts willing to police only racial gerrymandering, not partisan manipulation, the practice became a permanent fixture of American political life after 1929. It was a problem without a ceiling, and for decades, the only limit on manipulation was the crudeness of the tools available. Hand-drawn maps, precinct-level voting records, educated guesses about which communities leaned which way. Then the tools changed. Computing power and data removed those limits entirely. Modern map makers have access to software capable of processing millions of demographic data points simultaneously. The data itself has become extraordinarily granular. Today, those drawing district lines can purchase information identifying the political lean of individual streets and, in some cases, individual households. The result is a precision the authors of the 1842 Apportionment Act could never have imagined. Districts are no longer crude salamanders. They are mathematically optimized instruments, engineered to produce predetermined outcomes. Miles of narrow slivers connecting communities that share nothing except a mapmaker's calculation. Neighbors in different districts, strangers in the same one. Federal courts had long policed racial gerrymandering as a civil rights violation. But partisan gerrymandering, drawing maps to entrench one party's power, was a harder question. In 2019, the Supreme Court answered it in Rucho v. Common Cause. Partisan gerrymandering claims are beyond the reach of federal courts. The majority opinion explicitly returned that question to Congress and the states. The founders feared exactly this, faction manipulating the structures of representation for its own preservation. They simply could not have imagined the precision with which it would one day be done. The founders built the remedy into Article 1. Congress has explicit constitutional authority to set standards for how congressional districts are drawn. That authority has never been taken away. Congress used it. For nearly a century, it worked, imperfectly, but it worked. Then, in a moment of legislative exhaustion, it was allowed to quietly disappear, and in the nearly 100 years since, no Congress has chosen to restore it. Various bills have been introduced over the years. Some would restore the core of what the 1842 law established. Others propose more structural changes to how representation itself works. None have passed. States have tried, through redistricting commissions and court challenges that have redrawn maps. But these are case-by-case battles, and courts move slowly. By the time a map is overturned, the election under it has often already been decided. And as George Washington warned in his farewell address, when faction is left unchecked, the damage is not contained by state lines. A citizen who does not feel genuinely represented will eventually stop believing the system represents them at all. The founders gave Congress the tool. Congress used it. Congress abandoned it. The question they left you is simple. Should Congress pick it back up? Until it does, or until something changes. The map still gets in the way. Your vote deserves better than that.
The founders left us more than a constitution. Their counsel shaped a nation, and it may yet help us navigate what's ahead. If you agree, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.